liberal path not only means more poverty and hunger and helplessness and homelessness, but it also means more divisions in our country.
In a crisis, you need bold action, not tired ideology. And above all, in a crisis, we need to bring people together, not pull them apart.
You know, whoever the Prime Minister is, if they want our support, they can't cut health care. That's just not allowed. We're not going to see any cuts to our health care system.
Now fewer than 72 hours until Election Day. Just before the break, we were taking a deep dive into party strategy over the duration of the campaign. Our front bench is back to keep the conversation going. Mohammed Ali, Anthony Kosh, and Alison Gifford. Alison, I'll start with you because we had gotten through the Liberals and the Conservatives, but the NDP. What do you think they did right during this campaign, and what do you think they did wrong?
I think that what they did right was really focus on the local battles, going to the communities that are really important to them. They knew it was going to be a tough slog, and they know they have a strong ground game, and so they focused on that. I think what was a challenge going into the campaign and what remained a challenge during the campaign was that so much of their message hinged on what they got done under the last government. That was always going to be the challenge of the Supply and Confidence Agreement, was that you've made a deal with a very unpopular prime minister and his government, and that prime minister is gone. And if you can only claim that you got so much done under this last prime minister by also holding this prime minister up, there's a bit of a logic loop there that isn't closed. So I really do wish that they had kind of looked beyond that somewhat and didn't always go back to the wins that they got from the Supply and Confidence Agreement, because I also felt like it tied them to the last government.
Right.
Well, more so than Carney.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah, Anthony, I thought it was interesting today, Jagmeet Singh, I think he originally said it to the Star's editorial board, and then today doubled down in his media availability, talked about, like, no regrets. Because he gets this question about, you know, if you had forced the government down when you could have, let's say in June and August, when, you know, Justin Trudeau was as unpopular as he was still the leader of the party, there wasn't a Trump scenario, like, you could have been in a very different position right now. And he basically said, like, I don't regret it because I felt that over my own party's success, I prioritized keeping Pierre Poilievre out of power. What do you think they did right during this campaign? What do you think they did wrong?
So what they did right, I believe they had a full slate of candidates, right? They had 343 in all ridings, or close. Or actually, no, they didn't. There's one anyway. What they did right, what they did right is they almost had a full slate of candidates, and what they did wrong is everything else. Like, this is a complete failure of a campaign. Like, the party is facing an existential threat. And it's amazing to me, by the way, because as you know, Vashi, I basically just got finished doing the BC general election campaign where I was decom for the BC Conservative campaign. And that was my first time up against a really professional, proficient New Democratic Party political machine. And those guys are tops. Don't agree with them politically, but in terms of their political effectiveness and ability to win elections, professionalism of the highest class, and that's why they won the election. Same thing you sort of see even to some extent in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, and in Manitoba. It just seems like the federal NDP, since Jack Layton has passed on, unfortunately, may his memory be a blessing, and they don't know what's going on, right? Like, he basically said to voters, I destroyed my party for you. Please reward me. What kind of pitch is that? I've never heard anything like it. And I think Alison is quite right to say, when you do these sort of confidence and supply type agreements, what ends up happening is if you like what happened, you just vote for the party that was actually in power. This happened in the UK, right? And I'm going back, I'm going to be a nerd and go into history, but in 2010, the Conservatives did not win enough seats to make government by themselves, and the Lib Dems, a smaller party, ended up propping them up. And they tried to make that exact same argument that Jagmeet Singh's making now, saying, well, a lot of the good stuff that happened was because of us. And what happened in the very next election? People who liked what the government did returned the Conservatives with a majority government, and the Lib Dems were sent to oblivion. So I think people should get the memo. It's not a really effective way to do politics. But no, Jagmeet Singh is probably the least effective leader in the history of the NDP. He brought his party from a position where they were actually quite competitive and popular, and now is bringing them to the brink of oblivion. So congrats on finding candidates. Other than that, I don't really know what you guys were doing.
It's very difficult to figure out what you actually think. Tell me what you really think. I'm just teasing. Mohammed, what do you think of the strategy that the NDP employed, and sort of how ultimately what they did wrong in your view?
I mean, it's tough because, I mean, I think no one really cared about them in this election. I mean, from the get-go, because it became very clear of a choice that people saw with Mark Carney, and then there was the base for the Conservatives out there. But I think the only good thing he's done, and to maybe move away from Anthony's point, but it is that, like, saving the furniture. Like, demonstrating to people, like, hey, like, there's a spot here in case, like, I'm willing to work again with the Liberals. Give me a return of status with the party, because that's what they're fighting for, is party status at this point, that we can work with Mark Carney and the Liberals, and I will ensure that Pierre Poilievre is not able to enact the cuts and everything else that he is promising across the board. I think that's his only good thing he's done, is to try to save that, because it has softened the numbers a little bit for the Liberals, and which is why the Liberals now have to remind NDP voters, the very people who are likely most impacted by the Trump tariffs and from affordability crisis. So I think that's the only good thing. I think everything else, he's fundamentally struggled to penetrate anything, to connect with voters, connect with his own base that has largely been concerned with the Trump tariffs. He just really wasn't ever present in any of those conversations when people were talking about who is best positioned to defend Canada.
Yeah, I think people were very focused on who could form government.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that is their own doing and how much ultimately is the situation, but that will provide for some interesting analysis post-election, which is where I kind of want to conclude with all of three of you. As we look ahead, I know we're all focused on Monday. Alison, I'll start with you. On Tuesday, what is the thing you're going to be thinking about?
Tuesday. So the House doesn't return until May the 26th, but around the same time we'll have the G7 finance ministers meeting. So we'll need cabinet to be chosen sooner than later. So I'll be waiting to sort of hear about those timelines and when that will happen. I think I'll be waiting to see the Prime Minister come out quite quickly on some actionable items around cost of living, housing, Arctic defense, and also just sort of Trump-proofing our economy. These are all things you can do without the House returning. More immediately, I'll be looking for the soul-searching dialogue that will likely happen with some parties who did not get the result that they want. And what that means. Sometimes people resign very quickly after an election.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't. So how is that all going to play out?
Anthony, what about you? What do you think you'll be thinking about Tuesday?
I think we're going to get a minority government one way or another. I'm not sure who that's going to be necessarily at this point. I'm very confident that Jagmeet Singh will not be Prime Minister. Other than that, again, it depends. I think there's going to be the immediate aftermath. There's going to be a period of renewal, whether it's going to be a new Prime Minister, whether it's going to be the NDP getting a new leader. And depending on who wins the election, I'm sure Conservatives will engage in our favorite national pastime, which is knifing each other and yelling at each other on the media and saying about how some of us are so smart and some of us are so dumb and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not looking forward to that part, depending on how this plays out.
Right.
But I am definitely, like we discussed before the show, actually looking forward to the campaign just being done, period.
Last word to you, Mohammed.
I think I'm similar to some of the folks here, but I think it's a tough, close race. I think there's still a lot of fun stuff to watch in certain provinces like Quebec and BC. So like I don't think anyone can declare which is liberal conservative here right now, majority minority on either side. Like I think there's still open. But in a post, I want to see who's going to quickly move on the interprovincial trade barrier stuff. Like we really need to get this overdone with. Like this is like 80 years of like constantly talking about like we need to be able to buy whatever we want. People can move wherever they want. So I'm really looking forward to see how quickly the premiers can get on board with the new federal government, and then also how quickly we need to respond with a meeting with Donald Trump.
Yes.
How quickly is that going to happen? It will be in D.C. There's no way Trump's coming up here for that meeting. So how quickly
Bold
is
prediction,
it? It's going to go down to D.C. So when is that going to happen?
I think it's a safe bet no matter who wins. Canadians will be looking for action on a number of different fronts, not just talk. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time tonight and throughout the campaign. Alison Gifford, Anthony Kosh, and Mohammed Ali.